For today's class, we're going to continue in our theme, metropolitan movements, and we're going to look at the British amelioration proposal. So our objective for today is to assess the aims, what were the features and the results of the amelioration proposal. But before we go into our topic, I have two questions that I want to ask. Where is that paper from?
Sir, can you go back, please? Sir, I was writing. Thank you, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Sir, must
Sir, we did this already.
Oh, we did this one already, the engage.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so that's it. All right. So, all right, so let us start from here. Amelioration. Just a recap, but I know everybody should know what is amelioration. When we
Sir,
talk about amelioration, what are we talking about?
sir, we're talking about the laws that the government implemented in order to improve the conditions of the enslaved.
Very good. Yes. So the rules are proposals that were implemented or proposed to improve the conditions of the enslaved people. Now, as we know, we are here. So if you look at my cursor, we're 1823, the amelioration proposals, and immediately following the amelioration proposal was the Demerara revolt. And so we know the purpose of the amelioration proposal was to improve the conditions of the enslaved people, and also it was a means of delaying emancipation. But I'm going to show you how it was a means of delaying emancipation. But always remember, especially for the multiple choice question, it's a question that they always ask. What was the main purpose of the amelioration proposal? And the main purpose of the amelioration proposal is to improve the conditions of the enslaved people. So, background information, who proposed amelioration? So amelioration was first proposed by the humanitarians under the leadership of Thomas Fowell Buxton. All right? Students in the waiting room. Kristen, have internet issues. All right. So the humanitarians were the first group to propose amelioration, right? To say, why not improve the conditions of the enslaved people? And one of the group that who would have made that proposal was another anti-slavery group who was called London Society for the Mitigation and the Gradual Abolition of Slavery. Now, this group, as they see the word gradual abolition, this group, although they are humanitarians, they say that, listen, we can't end slavery just like that. Because if we end slavery just like that, we're going to be in serious problem. You must put things in place before slavery came to an end. So the abolitionist group or the anti-slavery group, come in, Bartley, the anti-slavery group or the abolitionist group were separated on the concept of immediate abolition, whether slavery should end immediately or should slavery end gradually. Go ahead, Bartley.
Oh, sir, I just wanted to say that after the slaves got after the abolition happened, many other persons after the slave trade had ended, sorry, sir, many other persons in the Clapman sect that had left because they didn't support the move towards emancipation. And the few that remained, they didn't really want to press for it immediately because they
Mhm.
thought that as well the next step should have been amelioration. And the West Indies, also West India interest, they supported that movement too.
Very good. All right.
Are you
Very
going,
good.
sir?
Nelson?
Sir,
Yes, sir. So I was just wondering, like, and I read that, but I was wondering why would they say that they support the slave trade, the end of the slave trade, but not support the end of slavery? Because if you end the slave trade, then the supply of the slaves is going to decrease, and ultimately the entire slave system will be abolished.
Interesting point, because one of the immediate problems when the slave trade came to an end, uh, there was high mortality on the plantations in the Caribbean, right? And so the Caribbean depended on what you call now constant importation of Africans because the lifespan was like 7 years. After the slave trade ended, planters had to put in place different measures to improve the conditions in order for the system to survive. So maybe I'm just saying maybe I'm not 100% sure. Maybe their view, those who supported the slave trade but did not support the immediate abolition of slavery, was that they said, all right, if the lifespan of an enslaved person is 7 years, immediately all the enslaved people might just die and we'll just have a free society. That could be the case. I'm not sure. Anyone want to speculate why they would have supported this end of the slave trade, but
sir,
not the abolition of slavery? Yeah.
maybe they weren't
What?
ready to accept the fact that, all of this that they did was going to end so soon. You know what I mean, sir? Like, them just never ready to. So they just say that eventually, like, they eventually knew that they would die out. So they're just going to keep them until that time. You know what I mean, sir?
Yes, that could also. Yes, Giselle, you can go ahead.
Or maybe they were saying that, the slaves are going to reproduce, but still would not know why that would support an entire system. But I guess some persons would say maybe they would reproduce and keep on, increasing in numbers. Especially if the conditions are better.
That is true. Yes, Bartley.
Sir, I think it's because even though I feel like people always have like so some people have ulterior motive. So even though I feel like they were way in over their head, right? So when they abolished it, they didn't really, you don't have a plan what is next. So like after they abolished, they said okay, and then they realized that okay, when they give up, when they lose the slave, or when slavery is over, who is going to do all the work? Because remember, at this point, my people have it conditioned that black people can do all the work for them. So no, they don't need to work. So when they get rid of all the slave now, what is going to happen? Who is going to plant and who is going to clean and cook? You understand?
Yes, that
Yes,
is
sir. They never know to do nothing for themselves. So them they kind of need them at the same time. You get what I'm saying? That's so true.
yes, I agree also with that point. Yes, Lawrence.
Sir, I was saying, adding on to what Kiana said, because like the planters, remember that in Britain at that time it was like the industrial revolution and stuff, but all the planters had in the Caribbean was their plantation and so on. So I feel like they didn't want to support the abolition of slavery because they didn't, want it to really affect the planters. They were looking out for them in a sense, I guess.
Yes, that is true. So all of us, I think all the points are correct to some to from what we can speculate,
Sir,
right? Go ahead, Bartley.
sir, just to add to what she said, sir, like how when many of the planters, when they went to the Caribbean, it was to make a name for themselves, right? So when they got to the Caribbean, all of a sudden they have a big plantation house, whatever, they're racking in money. So when they get rid of slavery now, all that big money is going to be gone. So they're all going to be broke. And then the empire, the British Empire won't make as much money, So yeah, they don't want to get rid of all that money.
That is true. But as Lawrence would have rightly stated also that the the consciousness of the British people, all of this debate is taking place around the time of the Industrial Revolution. Always have that in the back of your mind, right? And you know what happened in the Industrial Revolution and what are the benefits for the British society, how things were changing during the Industrial Revolution. So maybe the persons who supported the slave, who were against the slave trade, were really saying, listen, slavery should exist, but we should, instead of trading slave, let us trade goods. Why not put most of our energy on manufacturing goods? Or they really never believed that blacks were equal, even in today's society, in British society. British society is very, very racist. It
Yes,
is.
sir. I have an example like for it.
Mhm.
Sir, so like my aunt, she's a teacher, right, sir? And she got promoted, but because she's black, she gets less money than what a white teacher would get.
And that is true. That is how it goes. It is the British society is more racist than the US. A lot of people don't know that. And but that is the reality.
It's
So
just that like the British are just calmer in their reactions. They're not out here, cleaning us off. They're more like
They're
aggressive.
they're not
So
very
is it so we could say that the British were more they are passive
they're passive
racist,
aggressive.
passive aggressive. All right. Because the systems that the British put in place is really to keep down blacks. Look what
I
they
get
did.
never see how them fight out Meghan Markle. She black.
All right. Old people would have said that before me.
So
Sir,
you
are you
Can you
saying you're not
imagine?
as
literally
open?
leave the family because of them, and I know it's because she black. Why all of that reach her?
True.
That is the reason. And that was the same point I was going to bring up about
Her
Megan.
first, you.
How they treat Megan during
So she
because
literally make them them literally make sure leave the family. So them too disgusting, man.
No, you see, people talk about how is Meghan why Harry leave. It's the fact that imagine if you love somebody, right?
How your
And
family are gonna fight you out?
everybody, cause white people say sometimes they would show some like a shade. And Megan understand, okay, you're in the British royal family. I mean kings and queens, right? So them gonna have them little bigoted statements. And everyone them never really want include or them never want she do nothing. And the fact that she's black, the fact that she's American, I already know that some British people don't like Americans, right? And them, I feel like them say some little eat at some and Harry know about it and him get fed up by it and him leave. I'm gonna rang him, It better I'm saying,
And
I'm
so
my family and I will go so they can go and button business. But still, if I did me, sorry, them have got call me the names coming down. Left the royal family. Very sorry.
no girl, like you can imagine you in a situation like a family, and them just throw beer shade after you. You gonna feel uncomfortable and want to leave, man. You gonna feel uncomfortable.
But then mega things that me can fly around the world for free and shake some
And she
hands.
don't have the prince, so she go about her business. She don't have him.
For true.
She don't have
yeah,
nothing to lose at this point.
I think sometimes people's like you have people that they are in good jobs that are making a lot of money, but the people who they actually work with, they are very toxic. And most time they just leave their job to get a lower paying job
Yes, sir.
because
Mine is
they
better
just
than
cannot work with certain people because people can be very toxic. And your mental health is very important.
this, sir. Next thing you got dead left all of that money. Might as well you just take a lower job and work your way up in a better environment.
In a better environment. And you know, ladies, you're growing up. By the next 5 years, you're in the working world, or you're going to be at university. You're going to experience some of these very same things. Uh, and also, you are in a family. So the next 10 years from now, by the next 10 years, most of you might get married in the next 10 years, right?
No,
Uh, the yes, the next 10 years time,
And
most of
then
you is a
there, like what
I'm
added
going
to
to
it
be
was that her
26.
family was shady. She only had her mother because her father and her sister were just there because she was a part of the royal family. It's only her
mm,
mother she had. Her mother was the only family member that actually cared about her. Her
Really?
sister and father didn't care.
but most people usually married in their early 20s.
No,
Uh,
sir. I live my life. 26, sir. That's so young.
26, 27. That's not young, but it's
Not
not
young to
old. I
commit
think,
one person for the rest of your life.
yeah. If you're
maybe
married at
because
35, 45, you still have to do it for your rest of your life unless you're going to, unless you're planning on getting a divorce.
But at least I get to enjoy my 20s.
And like honestly, sometimes when I hear people say it's like, what difference am I going to be doing out in my 20s? So that's all in back at
exactly.
me.
Yes, who know? Yes, who know?
I think it's the type of person that I am.
All right, students. So we understand the point now that British society was very racist. All right. So and so we could when we are seeing the contradictions where they at one point they were some people were actually supporting the end of the slave trade, but they were not supporting the end of slavery. And the truth is that not every time somebody is in support of you mean that they are for you. And so with that now, uh, Thomas would have been the one who would have proposed, his group would have proposed the amelioration at first. And they asked the British government to support amelioration, but they were undermined by the West India interests. Who were the West India interests? Who made up the West India interests? Yes, Giselle, go ahead.
So the West India interests were just basically a committee that was formed by persons as it says in its name, who were interested in what was going on in the Caribbean. They had family members who were planters, or they themselves were planters. They were involved some way, somehow, with what was going on in the Caribbean. And they wanted to keep slavery. They were for slavery.
Very good, very, very good.
Sir,
Yes, you are, go ahead.
sir, they also made up some members. They also made up a part of the member of parliament. They made up
Mm-hmm.
some parts of the member of parliament.
Yes, you're correct. The West India Interest was a very powerful group in England because uh, in Britain at the time, remember that Britain was built on slavery. So banks, all the banks in England at the time were controlled by slave owners or were developed because of slave money. All the we call it now, the insurance companies, the construction companies, those who are doing the inventions at the time, because Britain was going into manufacturing, all the major inventions that happened were as a result of donation from slavery. the king and the queen and the royal family, they also were highly involved in slavery. The church was involved. So just imagine that how deep seated slavery was to British society and especially its economy. And so the West India interest, as rightly stated, as Eric Williams said that, somebody read it for me, please. Come in, Miller. Miller, read it and then make a point.
The combination of these two forces, planters and merchants, coupled with colonial agents in England, constituted the powerful West India interest of the 18th century. Eric Williams, the British West India interest mounted a pervasive and influential campaign in defense of colonial slavery. Michael Taylor.
All right. Go
Sir,
ahead, make a point.
sir, I was going to say when you said that the banks of England in at the
Mm.
time are deeply rooted in slavery. So that was like one of their points to support slavery, because it was.
Yes. One of the reasons why they support slavery. That is true.
Sir,
And
but like,
so,
how can you make money after taking people, sir? Like that's so evil. Like I know slavery is evil, but sir, the more we go into it, is the more I realize how actually some cold-hearted people really think of all of this, sir. Like, how you build a country after taking away people and selling them.
and also taking away their dignity, because they took away the dignity from the people, their humanity. And so, very good point, Miller. So we know for sure that the West India interest was a very powerful group. They were involved in, some of them were politicians. Uh, it was a very powerful group. And they were the ones who went behind, they knew that the the London Society for the Mitigation and Gradual Abolition of Slavery, that group by Thomas Buxton, actually made a proposal or put forward a proposal that you should improve the condition of the enslaved people. But the West India interest went ahead and put in their proposal to the British Parliament. Why did they put forward these proposals for improving the conditions of the enslaved people? Go ahead, Nelson.
Well, sir, as I said, it was kind of like a race between the two societies to see who could first put in their proposal. And so the West India interests realized that the London Society for Mitigation and so on, so they were trying to form their own amelioration proposal. So they wanted to do it first because they did not have good intentions. They knew that their the proposal from the London Society, so and so, would be accepted. And they knew that they had good intentions. So they were trying to form their own proposal to say, let us just continue to keep slavery going on. Let's say that we're going to better the conditions. And in doing so, slavery will keep going on, we'll keep making money. And as the society is formed by persons who are, you know, involved in what is going on in the Caribbean. So they are profiting, they are benefiting from this.
Very good. Excellent point. Excellent. And
Sir,
anyone else?
sir, it was a race between the London and the West India interests.
Yes.
Sir,
But
but
the
why were they racing if they were against? No, if they
let
were for slavery.
repeat.
Sir, why were they in a race with somebody who was against slavery if they were for slavery?
That is the question we want to find
So
out. Because remember, 1 second, Miller. Remember that the London Society, they are against slavery, but all they're arguing is that you should prolong it. Slavery should not abolish immediately, but it should be a gradual step,
eventually, okay.
right?
Mm.
However, the West India interest, they were completely against slavery. But and we need to ask
Completely
ourselves the
for,
question:
sir, or against?
they were they were for slavery. The West India Society was for slavery. Here, the West India interest, the West India interest, the British West India interest mounted a pervasive and influential campaign in defense of colonial slavery. The West India interest, they didn't want slavery to come to an end because the banks were controlled by enslaved people, right? Not only the banks were controlled by enslaved people, but they had plantations in the Caribbean. The shipping companies were uh, the shipping companies uh, were developed because of slave money, and so the West India interest didn't want that. But the question we want to ask is why they would have gone ahead, and it could have
Sir,
been
give
two
me Abigail
reasons.
answer in the chat. Sir, want me read it?
Read it for us,
Sir,
please.
because the West India interest wanted to delay the abolition and still have control over the slaves' conditions.
Very good. And that was the reason. That was the reason why they went ahead and made the proposal. Another reason you think that they would have made the proposal. So one, they wanted to delay slavery. But what other reason? Who you think that they want to appease?
Themselves, but Britain.
They wouldn't
No,
want
they
to
want
appease
the
themselves.
humanitarian, the abolitionists.
They want to appease the abolitionists to say, listen, we are doing something too. We made the proposal to the British Parliament. We heard that you were coming with the proposal, but we first you, right? And so the reasons why they were interested is that the truth is that they want to appease the humanitarians or the London Society for the Mitigation and Gradual Abolition of Slavery. Meaning, if we appease you, you just shut your mouth and stop your campaigning. Be quiet, right? Because we are doing something also. So you can't come with an argument to say, oh, you want the best for the enslaved people. No, we want the best too, but the truth is that they didn't want the best. Another reason was that they wanted to undermine the abolition movement. They wanted to divide it. And another reason was that they wanted to delay the emancipation for the enslaved people. At the end of the day, ladies, this is what happened. The amelioration proposals were accepted by the British Parliament in 1823. It was accepted. Now, what were some of the proposals? Somebody, could you read the proposals for us, please?
Overseers could not carry whips in the fields. Slave marriages were encouraged. Slaves were to have Saturday for market and Sunday to attend church. Slaves could join Christian churches. Women should not be flogged. A record of slave flogging should be kept. Slaves could bring evidence against their master in court. Slave families should not be divided. Slaves could not be sold as a payment of debt, and you could not break up slave families.
Yes, go ahead, Miller.
Sir, the third proposal, even though we are not slaves anymore, sir, it came down from all that way because traditionally Saturday is for market and Sunday people go to church, like,
Yes,
so I would assume it's coming from that time.
it
Sir,
is from that time until now.
sir, what's the
Sir,
difference between slave families should not be divided and could not break up slave families? Isn't that the same thing?
It is the same thing, it's a repetition.
Okay, sir.
sir,
Go ahead.
sir, also for our proposal, a day should elapse between flogging. And
Mm-hmm.
if you gave a slave more than 3 lashes, the recording should be presented to the magistrate at the quarter sessions.
Yes, that is true. Which is right here. A record of this slave flogging should be kept. Because back then they didn't, before the proposals, you, the truth is that you just go into the field and flog. You give the enslaved person any amount of flogging as they want. Go ahead, Lawrence.
So, sir, when I was reading my Let's See Forget revision guide on movement towards emancipation, it said that one of the proposals was that children born after 1823 should be freed. But I don't know, I just find that very weird and confusing since the West Indian interest was, you know, against the whole abolition of slavery. That's why they did it.
You sure that point is not uh with the apprenticeship?
No, sir, it said the amelioration.
All right then. I let her verify that information. Yes, sir, go ahead, Bartley.
Sir, also they said that saving banks for slaves should be set up so that they could be encouraged to like thrift and so that they could buy personal possession, have something.
Bartley, you're breaking up.
Oh, sorry, let me say it again. Am I still breaking up?
No, no.
Oh, okay. So one of the proposals was that saving banks should be set up for slaves so that they would be encouraged to thrift and so that they could also buy personal possessions so they could have something for themselves.
Yes, that is also true. So they made quite a lot of proposals, and proposal varies from island to island, right? Colony to colony. The truth is that, ladies, the proposals failed. The planters didn't business about any proposal. All right. So one of the first things the planters strongly oppose amelioration. They didn't agree with it. So somebody, could you read this from Claypole and Williams for me, please? It should be Claypole and Robotham. Somebody
Sir,
read
I'll
it for me.
read.
Planter. Okay.
Okay. Reasons for the failure. Planters strongly oppose amelioration. Governors were ordered to carry out the proposals, but the governor of Demerara refused to publish them right away for fear of rioting. In Trinidad, the planters immediately asked for them to be withdrawn. Claypole and Williams, 2001.
Very good. So the governors in the British colonies refused to carry out the proposal. And what is the relation between the governor of Demerara refusing to publish a proposal and also the Demerara revolt?
Sir,
Go ahead.
sir, when he after they didn't tell he didn't bring out the stuff, the slaves heard about it, and then John Smith, he was trying to tell him that no guys, calm down, whatever, but that didn't work. And so he after that started out, he was the one who was blamed for starting out the revolt.
Yes, that is true. And so, in fact, once the governor refused, some enslaved people went around and said, listen, the governor, we got our freedom, but the governor don't want to give us our freedom. Some enslaved people thought that the amelioration proposal meant that they were getting their emancipation. And we black people already, we know what is going on now with COVID. We have all different type of story about COVID. The reason for COVID, why we shouldn't wear a mask, why people cuss out Buju Banton, and all different type of stuff. And so the planters were opposed to it. But why do you believe that the governors were fearful? Who do you think the governors were fearful of? Why the governors were fearful to carry out the proposal? If you are in charge of the colony as the governor, why are you fearful?
Sir, I think they were fearful because, like, you know that you are supposed to be, you're in the Caribbean, you're supposed to be pro-slavery. So, like, when you say that when you bring through the proposal and stuff, it's going to look like you're anti-slavery, and then the white people them are going to vote you out, and if they don't vote you, they might even kill you because just because if you look at the missionaries when they were trying to spread good stuff, they burned down the churches. So if they do that to the people, just because they were trying to Christianize the people, then what would they do if the governor came out to say, "Oh, yes, guys, we should do this
That
and
is
carry
true.
through with that"? So they might.
Yes, Barkley, you're very correct. And one of the things is that the governors were not elected, they were appointed by the British Crown. All right. So, but I believe that the governors were fearful of their lives also because it would seem as if they were anti-slavery, and some of them were actually anti-slavery, but in reality, the governors were fearful because look what they did to John Smith, and look what they did to Shrewsbury in Barbados and Williams Nib in Jamaica. Go ahead, Nelson.
Sir, another reason as to why the governors would not want to carry out these proposals is because that the in their minds, the more restrictions they imposed upon the slaves, is the more control they have over them. And so the better that the conditions that the enslaved experienced, they thought that, they would have more opportunity to plan riots, to plan revolts and all of these things. They wanted to keep on having control over them because overall they were very fearful, especially since the blacks far outnumbered them.
Very true. That is also another point, a very good point. All right, ladies. So, reasons for the failure of the proposals, not enough. We know for sure that one of them was that the planters were against it. The governors refused to, to, to publish the proposals, but Britain sent these proposals, but they didn't send any official, or they didn't have enough official to supervise the implementation. So it failed. Nobody to implement it. Who is going to supervise and say if the planters are following the proposal, right? And also, the planters felt that the amelioration proposal would undermine their authority. You can imagine that a enslaved person going to tell you that, listen, yes, as say a enslaved female, you are not supposed to hit me. I'm going to take you to court, and you're going to be fined. And the planter hit the female again, and she said, I'm going to take it to court, and she got to the court to report it. You can imagine? So they felt that the authority that they had over the enslaved people is would have been undermined. It's like somebody, and we could use a perfect example like today. Some parents believe that no government can tell them whether or not they should hit their child or not. Go ahead for me, Nelson.
Yes, sir. And just to add to what you're saying, um, the planters really disagreed with the amelioration proposals because some of the points in the proposals, they just thought that it was ridiculous. They did not think that an enslaved person should, be able to carry a white person to court and testify against them. They thought that it was ridiculous and they were not in support of it.
That is true. And also, and some of the other reactions against the proposal in Barbados and the Leeward Islands, they said that the slave laws were already improving the conditions of the enslaved. Do you believe that the slave laws were improving the conditions of the enslaved people?
No, sir, that
No,
not make no
sir.
sense. Well, you can improve your condition and still have me in a slavery. That makes sense.
What argument you believe that they would have used from the slave law to support
Oh,
that view?
sir, the argument would be that the planters provided paternal something, I don't know what it was in the slides or in the PowerPoint, and that they gave them the basic human rights, food, shelter, clothing, even though they got like one set of clothing per year and then their food was rationed and the houses that they live in never normally have beds and stuff, but they said that for the most part they had all basic human rights. And so
Well,
that,
not human rights. They had their basic needs.
yes, basic needs, sir. Yes, and all they had to do was work. That's what they said.
Well, so that was the reason they said. So they said based on the fact that we are providing for you, your conditions already good. It's better than what your conditions were in Africa. I doubt they knew what Africa was or how the people actually lived in Africa. One of the failure of this syllabus is that in the syllabus started with when you're doing the theme Caribbean economy and slavery. They should have started by looking at the conditions, how people lived in Africa the before the slave trade. And they actually just started at the slave trade, and that was it. So that is one of the weaknesses of the syllabus, that future teachers of the subject will have to fix, because most of you really don't know what was Africa like, what was their governance structure, what even for grade 9, most of you learn about industrial revolution, Cuban revolution, they will learn about Cuba. They should teach you about some parts of Africa, the kings and the queens, the universities, and all of these different stuff. Anyway, that's how the school system set up.
Or did they
Next,
change the Nelson Mandela in grade 9 thing? Or they still learn Nelson Mandela?
they still learn Nelson Mandela. Go ahead, Barkley.
Sir, I feel like that is one of the biggest well, not it's one of the things that make you see that whites still have superiority, not still have, but it looks like whites still have superiority, because if you look at it, sir, when you're in school or when you're even in prep school or whatever, they teach you that, oh, the whites invented this, and there's so many black people that invented so much of, like, who invented the stoplight? It was a black person who invented the elevator, a black person who they make
And
it
let us not even just like, let's
believe
not
that
even argue about black
believe
people.
that blacks were kings and queens. You had, look at Ethiopia. The queen bowed when in Ethiopian royalty visited the Queen of England. She bowed. She bowed. Blacks are so, sir, it upset us to work because, sir, even if you look at it, that European, it's so, we're so brainwashed that some of us, we think that, oh, if we have kinky hair, it better we straighten it than wear
Um,
kinky
and
style.
not even just like black
Straight
people on a
hair.
whole. Look at even women. There's so many things that women invented. And
Right.
yes, these people were, yes, some of them were white women, but just in terms of what I was saying about what the white man and legit man invented, like, oh my God, get over yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it seem as if, first of all, as a
I
black
think it was
man,
a white woman who
at a
invented the internet. I
disadvantage.
don't remember
But
her name.
as a black woman, you're at an even greater disadvantage because they already think that you are less than. Yeah, they already think that black, some women are dumber than men, and they, oh my god, oh my days, oh my days.
To talk about
That
like
is true.
patriarchy
Go
stuff.
ahead, Miller.
Sir, and that's how Rastafarianism came about in Jamaica, because like there are a group of people who never believe in the white church, because of how Christianity was introduced to us, like, yeah.
That is true. Now, two other points under this slide. Planters in Dominica, because of the amelioration proposal, they said they wanted independence from Britain. And the planters in Jamaica said that they wanted to join the United States. Can you imagine? Because they didn't want to implement the amelioration proposal. Somebody read this for me, please. Read this quote for me,
The
please.
refusal of the planters to accept amelioration meant that the anti-slavery campaign was given a stronger case. Claypole
What was the
and Button
stronger case?
2001.
What was the stronger case?
The stronger case was that they are refusing to abolish slavery because, oh gosh, words for me.
Abolish amelioration. Why you think that the failure of them to implement
Because the stronger case was that they didn't care about the well-being of the slaves, because here you are getting an easy option of not abolishing slavery, but just simply improving the conditions of slavery, improving the abuse that you're giving out to them, and you still don't want to do it, which clearly means that you don't care for them, you don't view them as people, you don't view them as equals.
very good. And then also in Demerara, immediately as those proposals came in, the slaves in Demerara revolt, and then Jamaica revolt. And so the anti-slavery campaign in Britain, at the time, they said, look at that. Perfect example. Why you think that the enslaved people in Jamaica and Demerara had their revolt? The reason is because you, the planters, are not taking care of them. Therefore, it is time to free the enslaved people. Make sense? That was the reason behind it. All right? So we know that the amelioration proposal failed. Ladies, please know the reasons why it failed, and also know at least 4 to 5 of the proposals from your head. All right? Ensure that you can recall it. So
Yes, sir.
next week when we meet, so for tomorrow's class, no, Thursday's class. For Thursday's class, you have what are you doing for Thursday's class?
A quiz.
Where?
You have a quiz. So you will
Sir,
have
can
to
I read
watch,
from today?
you're going to watch the YouTube video. Watch the YouTube video because there's a YouTube video, and then you're going to answer the question from the quiz. All right, ladies. Any question? Comments? All right, ladies, enjoy the rest of your day. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Sir, I was just wondering if like the term chattel slavery came from the humanitarian group.
No, everybody just call it slavery. It is historians who use the term chattel slavery because chattel means property, move something that is movable. You have things like chattel house, so something that is movable. So historians were the ones who coined the term, and also to differentiate that type of slavery from other forms of slavery that would have existed. All right.
Okay, sir.
Yes, yes.